Welcome to an NFL draft edition of the MVFC First Goal podcast. I'm Kelly Burke, and today's guest is a name that Valley football offensive coordinators know quite well because they spent a lot of time the past several seasons really trying to figure out how to contain him on the field. Khalen Saunders was an All-American defensive tackle for Western Illinois who has since turned major NFL draft prospect. Khalen, good to talk to you. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Well, the number one thing I'm curious about before we really dive into all the football stuff and off the field stuff, you have a non-traditional spelling of your first name, Khalen. And I know it's Khalen, and a lot of people in the league know it's Khalen, but people outside of the Missouri Valley call you Khalen. So how often do people call you Khalen and not Khalen? I mean, I would imagine it's a lot because your Twitter handle says Khalen, not Khalen.
No, I mean, usually the first time anyone meets me, that's what they say. And I mean, on paper, I can see why, they get that misinterpretation because I actually went to school with a guy that had the exact same spelling as me, and his name was pronounced Khalen.
Okay.
So he was like 2 grades ahead of me, so he kind of ruined it in my high school from early on. But I mean, it's just like it's a tradition with my family and K names. Like my mom and dad, brother, like 3 of my brothers all have names starting with a K. So that's just, and then obviously my daughter now has that. So it's just like a tradition, and like I said, it's definitely rough. Like first day of school, every first teacher I have, they say Khalen. At least sometimes they say Khalen Saunders, but I've got it where they say Khalen Sanders, and that's just a completely another person. So, I've been through that all my life.
I can't argue with the K thing, being that my name is Kelly. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Take me through the last 4 months since you officially ended your collegiate career, and what this time has been like as you prep for the NFL draft.
So after I got done, that was around mid-November. That was our last game, and then right after that, actually, like the next day, my coach had called me into the office, and he had told me that I got a Senior Bowl invite. So that was kind of the start of everything. That was the start of my post collegiate career, I guess you can say, because that's like getting into the draft. That's pre-draft process stuff. And so, I at that point, I kind of just start preparing for that. Start making sure I stayed in football shape and just being prepared technique wise, because that was I'm not as lucky as some other guys that played games up until January, and then they have the Senior Bowl coming up. Like I got done playing in mid-November, so I was taking basically 2.5 months off before I played a game again. So that was just my biggest concern, was to make sure I showed up to Alabama ready to go, ready to compete against the best of the best. And like you said, though, these past 4 months, it's just been kind of stages. Like I kind of broke it down into stages. Like, the first stage was just training, staying in shape. And then the second one was the Senior Bowl. And then after that was the Combine. And after that was the Pro Day. So it's just been like, that kind of keeps me focused and keeps me moving forward to know what's the next thing I'm working for. So, like whether I have to work more football technique and being able to play. And then, leading into the Combine, I got to work more speed and being fast, being explosive. And then in Pro Day, I didn't really do any retesting, so I was back to football technique. So, that's just kind of how I broke it down and how I attacked the process.
You've had a lot of milestones, a lot of highlights, in the time that you just mentioned. And Let's start off the field with the birth of your daughter, Cambridge. In what ways has she changed your life?
Oh, I mean, the biggest ways, that's one of the biggest, I guess you can say, turning points in anyone's life, is having a child, because you become the provider, you become the support system. And, it was just one of those, I've always kind of been grounded as far as just, wanting to provide for my family and wanting to be that type of person. But having the kid, that just kind of reinforces it and amplifies it, because like this is a human being that absolutely depends on you to provide for their life. So it obviously it changed me, or it kind of didn't really change my viewpoints or anything like that, but it just enhanced them. I would say, like, it just made me want to focus in even more. It made me want to do that extra rep. Made me want to go to the gym that extra day and stuff like that. So it just really became a motivational factor, if anything.
Where do you think that provider instinct that you sort of naturally have came from? I mean, does it come from growing up in St. Louis? Your mom is a very strong woman, Kim, and I know she's an influential person in your life. What do you attribute having that to?
Yeah, no, like you said, growing up in St. Louis is very easy to, end up in the wrong type of stuff. It's very easy to, be just a stereotype. And, my main concern was just, like I said, like you said, from an early age, I always wanted to make sure that my mom didn't have to worry about anything. I've witnessed firsthand the type of stuff that she had to go through just to provide for my brother and I. And so, like that just, that motivated me from an very early age, that I didn't want, her to have to be able to have to do all this extra stuff and go to work all the time and be up at 5 in the morning, and then because my mom actually didn't have a car until my sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
So I used to see her get on the bus at 5 in the morning every morning, and go to work, and just to make sure that me and my brother had what we needed so for her to provide for us. And that kind of instilled the work ethic in me early, just to see her do that every morning. And so it's a blessing that I'm in this position now. That way, she won't ever have to do any of that type of stuff again. And I'm just very excited that I get to contribute something like that. And so I would say from early on, I had this kind of mentality of wanting to be a provider. And going through high school, middle school, stuff like that, you can't really do much.
Yeah.
I can try. I got a couple jobs. Growing up, I think my first job I had, I worked at a car wash called Waterway, and and that was just it wasn't much, but I was making my own money, so I didn't have to ask her for any money. So that type of stuff, it made me feel good about myself, and that's kind of where it developed. It kind of developed into what it is today, of me wanting to provide, and not just provide so I don't have to ask her, but also be able to provide where she can ask me for stuff and I can give it to her. And that's just, she's not like that at all. Like, she hates. It's like I would say I'm doing well for myself now. Like, I got a couple sponsorships and stuff like that, so I have cash, to use. When we go to restaurants, she still wants to pay. I'm like, Mom, you need to step down. Like, this is no longer that. Like, and so she's just real. I like to call it a mama bear type of mentality. Like, that's just how she is. And, I think that being raised by her, and also my dad, but being, living with her for a majority of the time, kind of instilled that into me early on.
Yeah, it sounds like she's a fantastic role model for you and your brother.
Yeah, no doubt. She definitely is.
And it's nice too, now that you're in a position and going to be even more in a position where you can thank her, even if she doesn't necessarily want to accept it.
Yeah, she never does want to, but I was kind of got to force feed her, and she accepts it in the end, but she always just be like, she'll do subtle stuff like, I'll pay the bill, and she'll be like, I'll get the tip, don't worry about it. I'm like, whatever. I just let her do it to satisfy herself. But in the end, she's kind of slowly transitioned into that role of understanding what it means to go to the NFL and what it means for my financial future and just our future in general.
So my introduction to your mom came this season. It would have been the Youngstown, the Valley opener for you guys against Youngstown State.
Oh yeah.
And you come in on offense, and everybody's like, "Wait, what?" And then you catch your first career touchdown, and your mom is going crazy, right there at the fence. And then you got even a chance to go over and I think give her a big hug or something. But you can tell she's one of your biggest fans.
Yeah, no, she's been like that. The only year she wasn't like that was my very first year of football, and that was just because she actually didn't want me to play. Like my dad kind of snuck me in.
Okay.
But then she came out and she saw that I loved it. She saw it was a game that I loved playing and how much joy it brought to me. And ever since then, I mean, she's been out there and like she went from hating football to in middle school and high school yelling at refs because she felt like too many people was tackling me to to being at every single home game or game that's within the vicinity that she can go to, and she wouldn't miss a game for the world. So yeah, that's definitely she's been supporting and she's been a fan since I started playing football a long time ago.
That's great. You became the first Western Illinois football player to ever be invited to the Senior Bowl this season. And that was right in the middle of Cambridge being born. So how did you juggle those emotions and everything? Because you obviously had two life-changing events, and you had to make a decision. And I know your fiance was super supportive in really pushing you to stay in Mobile. Right. But how hard was that from your standpoint to have to juggle the two?
Yeah, no, it was tough. Ultimately, it just came down to what was best for the future, and just kind of that level of maturity as far as just wanting to provide. Like I said, I've always been a nurturer and a provider, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough. Being the first invite in history, I wanted to represent my school. I wanted to represent them the right way. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it's not just about Big Ten, SEC schools. Anybody, if you have talent, then you can make it. So that was my, I really wanted to do that, but I also obviously wanted to be home and witness my daughter's birth. So ultimately, like you said, my fiance, she's a heck of a supporter herself, just like my mom, and she encouraged me to stay just because we talked about it also early on because my daughter was actually due January 31st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we were thinking that she was gonna come maybe even in February because they say that.
Okay. Yeah. They
say the first one is a little later. So
yeah.
We were all under the impression that she could possibly come in February, and so we were just like it's whatever. If she does end up coming early, it shouldn't be before the Senior Bowl because that even the Senior Bowl was on the 26th, so that would still be like 4 or 5 days early, and but she ended up coming on the 22nd. So I'm like, yeah, it was definitely a surprising event, but yeah, I just like I said, we talked about it and we just decided that it was best for me to stay there, and I'm gonna. It's not like not being there for those couple days was going to affect anything. I still get to see her, be with her all the time. I watch her all the time and, play with her. So ultimately, I think it was the best decision I made. And also, during all of that, I got to go home and see her before I played. So that was even better. That was like, the icing on the cake. Yeah,
Cambridge just wanted to make her surprise entrance so she could be there to witness what Dad did in the Senior Bowl, like on TV, right?
Right. She was in there watching in her Western onesie.
So you go through this Senior Bowl experience and you get to play for John Gruden's team, which I'm sure is an experience in itself just because he's his own personality. You have the first sack of the game. So how did that experience in particular validate that you can play in the NFL?
No, like you just said, I just feel like it was a big validation point. A lot of people will criticize and I don't get many knocks besides the knocks that I really can't control, like height, arm length and level of competition. I don't schedule the game, I don't schedule the schedule. And but that being said, it's very common knowledge that the Missouri Valley is the best conference in the FCS.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. Even if I was in Ohio Valley or anything, if I was in Ohio Valley, I would not want to play North Dakota State. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Illinois State on a good year, UNI on a good those are teams that you know of people coming from, like David Johnson, obviously Carson, these are programs that clearly have had tremendous talent coming through them, and so my whole goal in going there, there was actually another guy from the Valley there, Jordan Brown from South Dakota State.
Yeah.
So, me and him talked a lot during that week, and we always encouraged each other. We were actually lucky enough to be on the same team, and that helped. So, I was just like, man, we got something to prove. Like, everybody kind of knocks us, saying our level of competition is below everybody else's, and I was like, let's just prove that it has nothing to do with that. Let's just prove it's football, it's college football, it's the same thing. And so, like I said, I just wanted to go out and prove it. And I feel like I did a good job of it, and making sure that, there was no doubt. I tried my hardest. Like, I went out there and gave it everything I had, because that was like my impression on scouts as far as me playing against the better competition in their eyes.
Yeah. To your point too, I mean, it's a known fact. I mean, it's proven that the Valley, it's not only the number one league in the FCS, but if you look at the Sagarin ratings, the Valley actually ranks ahead in terms of toughness at, like, even some of the FBS, like the Sun Belt, some of those leagues, it's above that in terms of when you look at schedules and the quality of competition.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I was explaining to some of the scouts, and just even some of my friends that I talk to. Just like, I mean, you can see it. Like, there's plenty of times where teams out of the Valley have beaten the FBS opponents that we schedule. And I mean, there's no better way to tell if the Valley is tough or not than to schedule them against the opponents you believe that are better. So, like I said, we've had success against Big Ten schools, MAC schools, Sun Belt schools, like you said. Like, we've played all of these guys before, and we've proven that it's not impossible to beat them.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I just think that, but I do feel like that the Valley is definitely, or not even just the Valley, but FCS football in general is on a little bit of a rise, because a lot of stars are starting to come from FCS, and I just want to hopefully add to that list and further help the guys after me coming from the FCS level.
I would agree, because I think a lot of guys in your position, let's say, that are starting college, are realizing I can go to an FCS school and I can be a starter, or I can get way more playing time, as opposed to I'm going to sit at an Alabama. I might sit for 3.5 years, and maybe I'll get into a game, but I have a better chance of maybe pursuing my game going through this other journey.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my thought process as well coming out of high school.
Yeah. In February, you were invited to the NFL Combine, and you wrote that you had waited years for this moment. So how did the reality of the moment live up to everything that you had dreamed about?
Oh, yeah, no, it was amazing. Just being in an NFL stadium in Lucas Oil, and like, that's a historic stadium. Obviously, the Combine's been there for years, so I've grew up watching this. Like, I've seen thousands of guys come through the Combine, and for me to be on the same field as those guys were, it was just, like I said, it was a dream come true. A lot of guys, sometimes you have the guys that didn't start playing football until maybe junior year of high school, or maybe been playing since like freshman year, but then didn't really want to go to the NFL. Me, I've been playing since I was like 9 years old, and I wanted to go to the NFL since I started playing. So, like, I've been watching for a long time. I've, had my favorite players throughout history and all kind of stuff like that. And like I said, just to like, my favorite players of all time were on the same field that I was on. And, that's amazing. That, to me, that was one of the best experiences I could ever have.
In some of your visits to teams or your meetings with scouts and different teams, what's the most unusual question that you've been asked so far by an NFL team?
Well, one of the weirdest questions I was asked, I don't remember what team it was, but they were like asking when was the last time I got into a fight, and and they're like asking, like, they asked, did I win the fight and stuff like that. And then the Seahawks actually had us do like a staring contest, and like, we were just sitting there. They were timing how long we can keep our eyes open. Like
staring at another person, or just staring
staring at absolutely nothing, and they were timing how long we can have our eyes open.
Interesting.
So I mean, maybe that translates to their playing style, but it was just weird to me. I never had to do a test like that. So
wow.
It was definitely a couple just unique experiences that I had out there.
What's the question that you most want an NFL team or a scout to ask you that maybe they haven't?
Oh no, I think I've been asked everything I could possibly think of, but I would say my favorite question that they do ask is why should we use a draft pick on you?
Mm,
Because I feel like I have a lot of good answers for that, and the main point being is that I feel like I'm going to work for everything I get. Obviously, I'm coming from a smaller school, and you'll hear me say that a lot. You've heard me say that a lot through all the interviews and the scouts and the front office personnel have heard me say that a lot too. But I truly do live by that. Like I'm not afforded like you said, being from Alabama, being from Clemson, Ohio State, wherever. Like I'm not afforded luxury of just thinking like, oh, I did good, so I'm gonna go to the NFL. Like I could have had the best career in Western history, and still might not have a shot just because of the circumstances. So I like when they ask me, why should we use a pick on you? Because like I said, I feel like I have a lot of good points that I bring up, and it helps them kind of make that decision.
yeah. During your time at Western Illinois, you played for three different head coaches. Most recently, Jared Elliott, who's the
Right.
current coach. Before that, Charlie Fisher, who's now at Arizona State as their wide receivers coach. And then before that, Bob Nielsen, who's the head coach at South Dakota. And I'm big fans of all three of those guys. But why do you feel like the chance to play for three different head coaches is relevant in your development as a player?
Yeah, I mean, there are different coaching styles. There are different staffs that come along with them, and all of those things kind of help me because within those three coaches, I've had a new D coordinator every year.
Yeah.
So I tell that to teams also, like that if there's any question about me picking up a defense, like you shouldn't be worried. I had to pick up a new defense every year in college. So like that's the last of my worries. I'm gonna get the playbook and I'm gonna have it down, fairly quickly. And also that helps as far as just football IQ and just intelligence and stuff like that because um, a lot of the coaches I've had teach me different stuff, and so I kind of just like the coach that went to with Coach Nielsen, Coach Moose. That's what we used to call him.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot early on. Like he taught me my redshirt freshman year a bunch about football and just a bunch about how to read things, a bunch about using my hands and stuff like that. Then I had another D line coach, that Coach Stockton. He taught me a lot too because he was younger. See the difference between Moose and Stockton. Moose was a little older. He had a lot of experience. He played for Nebraska, stuff like that. And then Coach Stockton was younger, went to Notre Dame, and he played on that outstanding defensive team, that championship defense team. So he had a different kind of viewpoint as far as he knows what it takes to get to be a championship caliber defense, stuff like that. So I learned a lot from him. And then you got my last coach was Coach Haines he was at Mississippi State, and so he was around some of the guys in this year's draft that were that are going to be highly regarded picks like Montez Sweat, those type of guys from that school. So he had a different viewpoint as well. So all of those guys kind of like all these coaching changes and stuff like that. I don't look at it negatively or anything. I look at it as a blessing because, like I said, I get to learn so much. I get to have go through different coaches. It's a little different from if you got an established coach and like the SEC or something that's been there for 20 years. You're only used to how he coaches. So if you get a new coaching style, it might be a little culture shock to you. For me, I tell all GMs and owners and coaches alike, they'll ask, how do you respond to coaching? How do you respond to tough coaching? I'm like, listen, the way the coach coaches is the way I respond. That's how I take it. I don't care if you're yelling at me, if men sweet talking, whatever. Like at the end of the day, it's all about what you want me to do and how you want me to do it. So, I just make sure that they know that.
The reality is too that with the NFL being more of a business, the chances that you're going to play for one team in your career only is pretty slim. You're probably going to play for multiple teams throughout
Exactly.
your NFL career.
Yeah, I agree.
My conversation with Khalen Saunders continues in just a second, but if you're enjoying this edition of the MVFC First and Goal podcast, check out all the Lineup Media Group offerings, sports and non-sports podcasts. Now back to the show. Looking back on your career at Western Illinois, why have you been able to make such a name for yourself?
I definitely feel like it's all from just taking advantage of my opportunities. I try and make sure that I like no matter what happens, I'm gonna make sure that whatever opportunity I do get, I'm gonna take it. That was the case with my Division I offer from Western. That was the only one I had, so I took that opportunity and I went to Macomb, played as hard as I could, and so I think a lot of people appreciate that. And by those people appreciating that, they kind of give me rep. Like they will talk highly of me. All my coaches I've had still to this day talk highly of me and stuff like that. And so, I think that helps. Being a good person and then also being a good player. They play hand in hand. So I think that kind of helped me out.
You mentioned Coach Haines earlier, and I wanted to read you a little anecdote that he shared with me. I'm actually really excited about this. So he says, quote, "In the summer, the coaching staff likes to play basketball at lunch when we can. One day, Colin was out there, and we needed a guy, so he jumped in on the defensive staff's team. I knew he was athletic, but never saw him play basketball. The first 3 times we had the ball, he was playing point guard. He was crossing guys up with his dribble and making crazy layups and hitting 3-pointers. We easily won the game, and by the end of it, he had a new nickname that I still use on him called Fat Kyrie. He looks like a big Kyrie Irving on the court, and it blew me away, and it showed me why his jab counter pass rush was his best move."
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, no, I love playing basketball, man. I take pride in not being just that big dude on the court that play defense, like being just a brick wall and everything. Like, I'm pretty fluid. I can handle the ball pretty good. I always grew up watching ball handlers. Like I never some big dudes be like, "Oh, who your favorite player?" You like Shaq or something. Like I I always would watch Kobe. Kyrie Irving is my favorite player, and he's probably gonna go down as my favorite player in history.
Nice.
Because like his handle on the ball is like second to none. Like he has the best handles probably of all time. And so that's why he calls me that all the time. Because like when I watch basketball, I watch point guards, and that's who I try and play like. And I remember that game too. But they were definitely surprised because like I remember the first point I scored. I got a rebound and I went coast to coast. People were like asking for the ball, like kick it to me, because they didn't know. Like usually see a big dude on the court, he dribbling and then he like fumbles the ball off his leg or foot or something like that. So I was going coast to coast and I had a couple guys reach in on me, do a little crossover behind the back stuff, and that was like, oh, okay, he a little different. So and that's like the reaction every time I go play basketball, like anywhere new. Anywhere like that, people have never seen me. It's always the same exact story of, when I first get on the team, they don't really trust me. Like they'll be like, they don't let me bring the ball up the court, so I always end up having to get a rebound and then go coast to coast. And then that's when I'm like, oh, okay. And then then right after that, I turn into the point guard of the team. And then if it's pickup and we lose, and the next thing you know, guys coming up like, hey, you just lost. Hey, we want you on our team. Blah blah blah. So basketball is definitely a fun sport for me. I like to surprise people, I guess you can say.
Yeah,
especially when they. What'd you say?
Oh, I was gonna say sneak up on them a little bit. Like they underestimate you clearly.
Yeah. That's the best part is when I go to a gym and like they put another big dude on me. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a day at the office right here. And I just act like I don't really warm up. I don't really shoot around, so people don't expect anything. And then they put like a guy of similar size to me on me, and then I just absolutely kill him for like the whole game.
So from crossing guys up on the basketball court to doing backflips, where does your athleticism come from?
I have no idea. I mean, obviously, my dad was very athletic. He played football as well.
Okay.
But like, I mean, it's just a blessing from God. A gift from God that I have no idea how it came about. My mom, she played a little bit of sports, but it wasn't like, it's not like I got just LeBron James and Serena Williams or something. It's my mom and dad. Like, I got pretty athletic, but just normal. And it was just one of them things where that gene comes out of nowhere, and I just start trying to do new things and trying to find the limits of my body, and that's how I'm here today.
Yeah.
I just tried new stuff, and then it ultimately worked out, and I didn't hurt myself.
Well, because as you show this year, you've got good hands, but then you're flexible too. So, it's a real asset for anybody that picks you up. The teams you've talked to, I mean, where have they said that they really see fitting you on their I'm assuming they want to use you on defense, but where exactly do they plan to play you?
Well, it just depends on the team and the scheme of that team. Like, some teams would rather me be a nose, like a 0 or 1 tech. So if they're like 3-4, they might want me to be the 0. And then if they're 4-3, they might want me to play like a little bit of 1. And then but those are just some teams that like have their primary goal is to stop the run and stuff. Then you got like teams that want just penetration no matter what, and they see me more of a 3 tech or like a 3-4 defensive end.
Yeah.
And, so and then also the other point is that a lot of teams like play just D lineman. Like it's pretty much you don't really have a position because like say if the tight end trades, then you just kick down. So I can go from a 1 to a 3 tech. So they just kind of see me as like an athlete, a good body, a good athletic, stout body type that they can use on the interior. That's just really like all the teams I've met with and at the combine and went on visits to, like they just see me as an interior D lineman. That's pretty much what they say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Almost like a utility player if you're doing baseball or flex player in softball. One of my other favorite stories about you is that you actually played running back in high school. And your Western Illinois bio talks about how one of the people you most admire is your high school coach, Mark Goldenberg. And it's because he gave you a chance to run the ball. So how did you convince him to play you in the backfield?
It wasn't much convincing needed to happen. I actually, I played running back from like when I was in 6th grade until when I graduated, obviously. And, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it was middle school ball, so you can kind of play what you want. But I was doing good at running back. I was playing like fullback more. And, I was getting good yards and stuff like that. And then freshman year, I played running back, still played running back. And then sophomore year, I got on varsity. I didn't get on varsity right away. Like my sophomore year, I played 1 game on junior varsity. But when you like play on junior varsity, you obviously have to do the scout team for the varsity team,
Yeah.
So, we used to play, go against our varsity defense, and I would play scout team running back. And, I was the only person who can score on our varsity defense. And, this is with, other freshmen and sophomore blocking against junior and senior defensive linemen and linebackers and stuff. And, they were just getting absolutely killed, but then I would just make something out of nothing and, get, a 20-yard run. Or I remember a couple times, I scored a touchdown one practice, and the starting defense was just getting pissed at me, and we weren't live, but they were trying to tackle me and they couldn't, and so it didn't make it any better because they're already mad at me and then they can't tackle me, and I think he saw that and he was just like, all right, and then junior year actually that's when because sophomore year I just played D line when I was on varsity. I didn't play any offense, and then junior year summer camp. He set the first team offense, and then the second team, he looked around, he was like, all right, Saunders, you get in at running back second team. And ever since then, it kind of took off.
Nice. If I had to describe these last 3 to 4 years covering you, I personally would say that Khalen's a guy with a dynamic personality who plays with a chip on his shoulder, but has freakish athleticism for his size. And I want to pull up really quick. Just give me a second. I want to pull up what Coach Haines, how he described you, because he had obviously has great insights because he was around you all the time. He said, He is an unbelievable teammate who was always there for whatever his guys needed, whether it was an ear to listen or someone to hang with. He is incredibly gifted physically, combined with his strength, but his ability to process the game mentally and his attention to detail makes him very special. And then he went on to say, I absolutely loved getting to coach him and am so excited for his future, proud of the player, and most importantly, the man and father that he has become. That's my take. That's Coach Hainline's take. How would you describe yourself?
No, yeah, I agree. I've always tried my best to be, the best teammate I can be because, I grew up with a lot of brothers and I'm the youngest of a lot of brothers. So, I kind of, as far as, especially when I became junior and senior, upperclassmen, I know how it feels to be coming in and be the younger guy on campus. And, because I was real young when I graduated high school. I was 17.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. So
wow.
I actually came into, like, throughout the whole summer camp, I was like the only 17-year-old there. Everybody else was 18. And I didn't turn 18 until August.
Okay.
And so I didn't turn 18 until right before the season started. So, I know how it feels. And, but like you said, feel like I'm just easy to get along with. I try my best not to have any kind of issues or conflicts with people because, it's just not, I've seen that type of stuff turn very toxic, and I'd just rather not. I just rather be that, like you said, that guy that you can talk to or hang with, like especially being a mentor. I'm no longer a mentor now because I'm going to be the young dude in the NFL, but, when I get back to the status that I could do that type of stuff. I like, kind of taking people under my wing and just teaching them about everything they need to know about. And then as far as just like my, personality, my strongest personality trait is just like the ability to get along. Like that's I take pride in that because, like I said, nothing is that serious for me to ever have an issue with anybody, especially like, if it's football related, then I really don't try and have any conflicts, like being on the team, having conflicts within the team, having a conflict with a teammate. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I've had conflicts with my brothers, but that don't mean we hate each other. Like, we grew up and got over it, and that's kind of my mentality about being a teammate because I look at those guys as my brothers. And, and then, I just, like I said, I feel like, I don't really have any issues with anybody. I try to respect everybody. My mom taught me at an early age to treat people how you would like to be treated. So, that's how I live, and I respect everybody. I'm a no or no sir, no ma'am, ma'am sir type of person. Like that's just how I was raised, and I try and be respectful to everybody I come in contact with.
That's great. How do you plan to spend the NFL draft?
Oh, I'm actually gonna be in St. Louis with my family and like a few childhood friends.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to make it huge or anything like that. Like I don't want to have this big old party or anything like that. I would but I want to obviously have my family and people that have helped me get to this point in attendance, and so we're gonna be watching it most likely at my brother's apartments. He has a nice like thing on the roof, like kind of skyrise type of thing,
okay.
and you can rent it out for events. So it's just gonna be a real kind of immediate event, and we're gonna celebrate it, and hopefully I can get my name called on Friday, but Saturday I'll take it than not hearing it at all. So
yeah, well, that's exciting. I can't wait to see where you land, and you've been so fun to cover and follow the last couple of, well, really the last 4 years that you've been playing, and you really have done a great job of making the Missouri Valley Football Conference proud.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm always gonna rep the Valley, and I'm always gonna rep Western. These are the Valley and Western are my only shots to do what I'm doing today, and like I said, I got nothing but respect for them and nothing but love for them.
Yeah, well, and what a great example you are for your teammates that are still, playing next season, and just for other guys out there that just the way that you've carried yourself and gone about things. So.
Yes, ma'am.
If you like what you heard from Khalen Saunders and our MVFC First and Goal podcast, take a moment to share, subscribe, and leave a review. LineUpMedia.fm also is home to many other sports podcasts, shows like Fairways and Greens, The Drop, and You're on the Clock. You can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher.